Gavich here.
Kuzikowski here.
Seibert here.
Chandler here.
If you would please take a look at the minutes from August 14th and let us know if there's any corrections, omissions.
Plan commissioners should be aware that there was one omission that was corrected and sent out in an email on page 3. There was missing a second for one of the items, and that's been added in.
Whenever you're comfortable, motion.
Kuzikowski makes a motion to approve the August 14th, 2018 minutes.
Seibert seconds.
Roll call.
And I.
Dunstan, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Pork, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Kuzikowski, aye.
Seibert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Significant common council actions, Carrie.
Common Council approved the following: an ordinance to approve a rezone of the properties at 9600, 9700, and 9900 South 13th Street and 741 and 1001 West Ryan Road. An ordinance to approve a conditional use permit for a community-based residential facility with a capacity of at least 9 but not more than 20 persons located at 7801 South Pennsylvania Avenue. A resolution approving a certified survey map for Brian Schoenleber for the property at 7980 South Cecily Drive, with conditions as listed in the council report. If there are any questions on the conditions, please let me know. A resolution creating, describing, and making certain findings and approving the project plan and boundaries for tax incremental financing district number 16. A resolution approving a certified survey map for Harry Moss, Arlene Moss, and Nancy Kenyon for the property at 10751 South Nicholson Road. Resolution approving a certified survey map for the City of Oak Creek for the property at 10025 South Shepherd Avenue, and a resolution approving a final subdivision plat for Glen Crossing Addition Number 1, Phase 1. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. We will move on to new business and item 5A, and it is review and consideration of a certified survey map to combine and reconfigure the properties at 7502, 7512, and 7518 South Howell. Carrie?
The request is to combine and reconfigure the two properties. You'll recall from the last Plan Commission meeting that these two properties were purchased. Well, the one property at 7518 was purchased by the Sikh Temple, which is surrounding that property. They have requested a rezone of that property as well. And that was recommended at the August 14th meeting for council approval. They will divide one outlot after combining and reconfiguring these properties. The outlot will contain stormwater infrastructure and also an open space easement. There's also an existing storm drainage, utility, and American Transmission Company easement on the property. That's shown on page 2 of the certified survey map. Staff recommends that all easements are depicted or referenced on page 1 of the CSM for consistency and clarity, although they do show up on page 2. It is slightly confusing that only the open space easement is shown on page 1. If the Plan Commission is satisfied with the certified survey map as presented and with conditions, there is a suggested motion that the Plan Commission recommends to the Common Council that the certified survey map submitted by the Sikh Temple of Wisconsin for the properties at 7502, 7512, and 7518 South Howell Avenue be approved with the condition that all technical corrections, including but not limited to spelling errors, minor coordinate geometry corrections, and corrections required for compliance with the municipal code and Wisconsin statutes are made prior to recording. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. Seems like a rather recent item, and we kind of went over this a little bit last time. Any questions, concerns from the commission? No? I think we kind of covered it at the last planning meeting 2 weeks ago. So if there's no questions, concerns, motion, please.
Seibert moves that the Planning Commission recommends to the Common Council that the certified survey map submitted by the Sikh Temple of Wisconsin for the properties at 7502, 7512, and 7518 South Howell Avenue be approved with the condition that all technical corrections, including but not limited to spelling errors, minor coordinate geometry corrections, and corrections required for compliance with the municipal code and Wisconsin statutes are made prior to recording.
Chandler seconds.
Roll call.
Hannah, aye.
Johnston, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Lorick, aye.
David, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Thank you, gentlemen. Good luck. Item 5B, review site and building plans submitted by Angela Gulf Chmura, Gulf Collision Repair Centers for an addition to the existing building for the property at 161 West Marquette Avenue. Carrie?
Proposal is for a small addition of about 1,700 square feet, and the addition will be on the northwest corner of the existing property and the existing building. The purpose is for conducting interior vehicle estimates. Right now, they have only exterior, so what they're trying to do is provide a little bit of cover and shelter for inclement weather so that both customers and employees have an enclosed space in which to conduct the estimate. There would be 2 drive-through bays with overhead glass doors. The addition would also include office space, reception area, and a waiting area. The proposed location meets all required setbacks. Parking on the property is in 2 locations on the north side of the building, and then most of the service vehicles are actually on the south side. They are proposing to either replace some of the existing asphalt or expand it, allowing for a little bit extra area for the addition. A total of 38 parking stalls are proposed. 36 are required because they have 8 employees on 1 shift. They are not looking to add any employees with this addition. There was an erroneous label that was on a previous version of the plans that has actually been removed in the plans that you now have. There's a little bit of landscaping that's being proposed because of the change to the parking on the north, so there's a small landscape island that'll be added. And on the screen right now are the proposed elevations for the addition. They will be matching the existing building, smooth face and split face CMU. There's going to be, again, glass overhead bay doors on the north and south elevation, gray tinted windows on the north and west, and there are no rooftop mechanical units that are proposed with this addition at this time. If the Plan Commission is satisfied with the presented plans and with the conditions of approval, there is a suggested motion that the Plan Commission approves the site and building plan submitted by Angela Goff Chmura, Goff's Collision Center for the property at 161 West Marquette Avenue, subject to conditions 1 through 3. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. I will start with the commission right off the get-go. Questions, concerns? Nothing from Christine or Brian? Dawn? Greg? Chris?
No.
What you, Fred?
Looks good.
Okay. Nothing, Chauncey? All right. Moving right along, I like to see our businesses expanding. Just for the general public, it is an estimating bay, so they don't have the ability to always get out in inclement weather and do the estimates on cars. So they're adding that option for people that come in that unfortunately have an accident. So I'm fine with it. So motion, please.
Oracle move that the Plan Commission approve the site and building plan submitted by Angela Goff Chmura, Goff's Collision Repair Centers, for the property at 161 West Marquette Avenue with the following conditions. Number 1, that all relevant code requirements remain in effect. Number 2, that landscaping plans are submitted for review and approval by the Department of Community Development prior to the submission of building permit applications. And number 3, that all revised plans, site, building, landscaping, etc., are submitted in digital format for review and approval by the Department of Community Development prior to the submission of building permit applications.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call.
Hannah, aye.
Johnston, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Lorick, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Excellent. Good luck, guys. Item 5C is a plan review for review of site, building, landscape, lighting, monuments, sign, and related plans submitted by Tony DeRosa, HSI Properties LLC, Mark Nicholson, Norm Thyme, Apple Tower Development, Inc., LLC, for a multifamily dwelling development on the properties at 8300, 8304, 8310, 8380 South 27th Street, and 8370 South Orchard Way. Carrie?
I will give brief remarks from the staff report, and then the applicants have a brief presentation that they'd like to present to you. The proposal, as the mayor said, is for a multifamily residential development. It was conditionally rezoned in July to RM1 PUD. On the screen is the proposed site plan for the entire development, to be known as Orchard Hills. 12 two-story residential buildings, 8 detached garage buildings, clubhouse, and an in-ground pool are proposed. Building setbacks are in conformance with the conditions and restrictions that were approved for the PUD. Access is proposed via the Forest Hill cul-de-sac there. Also, one access point on 27th Street, and also from the Orchard Way extension. Parking will be provided in attached garages, detached garages, and surface stalls. A total of 450 plus are presented, and there are 402 required, so it appears that parking is met in these plans. Trash enclosures have been provided throughout the development in between buildings. They will be constructed of fiber cement siding and trim boards attached to steel frames for gates. There were comments provided from the water and sewer utility for discussion. The applicant is currently reviewing those comments. There is landscaping that has been proposed throughout the site. There is a conversation currently going on regarding the requirement for council approval of the use of native seed. There are options that are being discussed to determine whether or not native seed is going to be used, or if there's an alternative that would not require council approval. But final approval of the overall plans would be by the Department of Community Development. And if there are any concerns or questions about the landscaping plans, please let me know. On your screen right now is one of the elevations for the buildings. I'm going to hold off because there are going to be more renderings in the presentation, but I will let you know that brick, cultured stone, fiber cement siding, and vertical fiber cement panels and smooth fiber cement panels in 3 shades of gray are proposed. As you are aware, brick and stone per code must be a minimum of 4 inches thick, and the use of fiber cement requires a 3/4 majority approval of the Plan Commission. Also, code requires that a total of 65% of the total exterior wall area be comprised of brick or decorative masonry. We have not yet received those calculations, but they are pending, and it is up to the Plan Commission to determine whether or not the proposed materials meet the code requirements. Before I turn it over for the presentation, the suggested motion that's been presented to the Plan Commission, if they are satisfied with these plans, is that the Plan Commission approves the site and building plans submitted by Tony DeRosa of HSI Properties et al. For the properties at 8300, 8304, 8310, and 8380 South 27th Street and 8370 South Orchard Way be approved, subject to conditions 1 through 10.
Good evening. My name is Tony DeRosa, HSI Properties, 18500 West Corporate Drive in Brookfield. Thank you for the opportunity to be before you this evening. We're at an exciting point of the project as we get closer to starting construction on the project, which our goal is to start this fall yet this year. And we're here tonight with a brief overview to kind of walk you through. Nothing has changed on the site plan since you've seen it last. We worked with the city and city staff in making all the required changes throughout the whole process. So here tonight to show you building design, clubhouse, and overall site. So with that being said, I'd like to turn over to Eric Harmon, our architect from AG Architecture.
Alrighty, thanks for having us tonight. As Tony mentioned, the site plan is just a little bit more colorful than the site plan you saw before. Otherwise, it's the same as previously submitted. So if we get the ball rolling and jump over to the next slide. The overall exterior design of the building starts to build off of what we had done for Drexel Ridge. That's the name of the project.
Before you go on, we need your name and address for the record.
Sounds good. Eric Harmon, AG Architecture, 1414 Underwood Ave, Wauwatosa, Wisconsin.
Thank you.
The work that we did at Drexel Ridge has been immensely successful, and that's why HSI wants to come back and do some more. But with that success, we did see areas that we could improve upon it, and some of these renderings will demonstrate those changes that we've made. This overall view shows the activity of the pool area and then the organization of the buildings in the background. As we go through the next 3 images, you'll start to see that there's 3 different materials throughout these buildings. And that's that's really the biggest change from what we had done at Drexel Ridge. The continuous building color of night gray at Drexel Ridge was repetitive for the number of buildings. So as we looked at developing a nicer product here, what we've developed are 3 different colored variations to the overall design of the building. Those 3 colors are represented in base, middle, and top. Things that didn't change about this building are the gabled roof forms, the accents on the balconies. The overall dramatic architecture that we've been able to develop has remained consistent. What has changed is how we've laid out these materials. If we go to the next slide, you'll start to see that there's 3 buildings in this image. The 2 in the foreground are the same color palette, with the 3rd in the background being one of the 3 color palettes differing. If we go to the next slide, you will see how the site plan lays out. The site plan is indicating the 3 different colored palettes. The first 2 buildings in the clubhouse are the night gray and pearl gray. That would be the first 2 colors there on the table. Night gray being the color that was used at Drexel Ridge, this time being accented by a nicer, lighter gray color, all continuing to have the white trim that was consistent at Drexel. The second set of buildings, the 4 in the middle, are going to have the color palette of slate gray and Arctic white, which is number 2, just a lighter variation on the same combination. Using the white here, this building will only have the 2 colors on it because the Arctic white is both the secondary siding color and the trim color. And then finally, the 4 main buildings before Orchard Way are the cobblestone and aged pewter. So as you can see, a variation of grays and blues working their way across the building, but set up on the site in groups of 4, with the last 2 being back to the night gray and pearl gray. So we're getting variation on the site without it being piecemealed on its way through. Overall, we're using the same brick that we used at Drexel, and we're using the same roof color. A lot of the details are going to remain identical to what you've seen in the past. As we get to this is where we're really making some broad stroke changes. As we looked at what we had done previously for clubhouses and where this clubhouse lied, we decided that this one had to be a little bit more, have a little bit more punch to it. So the architecture here is really aimed at addressing 27th Street and being the gateway into this development. On previous developments where we've been pushed back further, it hasn't mattered as much, but we feel like the front corner of this and the entry sequence really needs to set the tone for what you're getting as you go further on into the site. You can see at the entryway, we've got the battered columns, and on the corner of the building, we've got the stone accent coming up to the shed roofs. The stone that's used there is represented of the Halquest natural stone that you see next to me at the table. And then it looks a little bit light in the rendering, but what we're doing is we're doing accent roofing for metal roofs over the sheds there and on that corner element, and then going back to the weathered wood shingle siding as we work our way around the building. On the next slide, you'll see the view of the entry sign. So we're stepping back a little bit here. So this captures the entry sign that's on the front of the building, directly adjacent to 27th Street. And then on the following slide, you'll see that same sign illuminated at night. So we're using the same stone. We've got some natural wood and then panel behind the illuminated Orchard Hill sign. If we go to the next slide, you'll see the activity of the pool. Again, building upon all the strengths that we had at Drexel. We're developing a very similar pool, putting it at the same grade as the clubhouse, so there's no accessibility issues to get to this pool. The grading works out a little bit better for us here. And with that, we've also redeveloped what the inside of this clubhouse looks like. So if we go on the next slide, you can start to see, if any of you have had the opportunity to be inside Drexel, this is quite different, very exciting. We've reoriented the building completely so that when you're in the main space, as soon as you come in and enter the clubhouse, you're brought into this double height volume that'll lead you from the 27th Street face of the building right back to the pool side. So we're taking the excitement of that pool and that activity and making a much stronger connection. I believe there's one more image that shows looking back at kind of the entry sequence coffee bar area. Very welcoming place for both prospective and current residents of the development. One last slide is just a kitchen. Place for them to hang out and socialize. So the kitchen is accompanied by an outdoor grill station that would be on the outside of the pool deck. So that's used more hours than just the pool. So all in all, building upon success that we've had in the past, developing some more color schemes and really taking it up a notch in the clubhouse.
If there are any questions, I'd be happy to address any questions or comments.
Brad?
Yeah, I have one for the fire department.
Mike Kresick, Fire Department.
On the far east side of the property, they have a road that comes in off of Orchard Way. It looks like it's a dead-end road. Is that going to create a problem for you people to make access and get in if there's a problem at the entrance of that road?
So we've looked extensively at access to this site, and actually a couple plan commission meetings ago, Tony and I did meet to discuss general site access. All while keeping in mind, I believe, what the council and plan commission maybe intends with protections for the neighborhood to the south. We have multiple access points into this development. The far east side presents a minor challenge to us because of the limited access to the easternmost buildings. Our general response patterns to this location will be off 27th Street. Certainly the subdivision would be a last resort for us to make an emergency entrance into there. Overall, we find the access to be adequate.
Would you want to have a cul-de-sac, though, at that dead end, just to make it easy if he did have to turn around and get out?
Northern side of the property,
Yeah, on the far southeast corner at the end of that road. It looks like you've got probably some parking stalls. And I'm just wondering if you had to turn around, is that adequate enough to make that like a fire truck?
and that's a great question. So codes stipulate that essentially at the end of one-way stretches, there has to be a fire department approved turnaround. I believe we had one or two at Drexel Ridge. We were able to work out with the developer with, merely the addition of an asphalt pad or some other turnaround along the side of a building. Certainly a cul-de-sac would be nice. I would assume there are some restrictions on what can go in that space. I would be confident in saying we would work with the developer to make sure that we have adequate turnaround at that point. The initial set of plans provided access out to Orchard Way at that location, and that was prime for us. Completely understanding the dynamics of the situation, we would be willing to work with that closed off and developing some sort of fire department approved turnaround.
As you know, we do have a standard for dead-end roads. You have so much, and you do have to have a cul-de-sac to turn around and get out.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Dawson?
I can add one additional
Go ahead,
comment
Tony.
to that. One of the items that Mr. Kresick and I had discussed after one of the previous meetings was, are these buildings going to be sprinklered? Obviously, that has an impact when there's a fire. While they are not required by code, these will be sprinklered buildings. And that was part of the discussion that he had and how he got comfortable with the plan that you see before you.
See the concern, though. And have a place to turn around if you had to,
Oh, sure.
creates a problem. I have another question, too. Parking stalls. You included parking stalls in front of the garages. How many stalls are you counting into that parking in front of the garages? Just
What's the
parking stalls.
total? So if each building has either 8 or 12 garages, depending on the size of the building. So you'd count each apron in front of it as an additional space. So when you compare this to Drexel Ridge for comparison, we actually have a slightly higher parking ratio at Orchard Hills than we do with Drexel Ridge, and we haven't had any issues with any parking requirements, meeting demand, availability of spaces. It's worked more than adequately.
What about visiting parking? Where is that located?
Right, so what we do, our program, and if you drive through Drexel Ridge, you'll see that there's a handful of spaces that are reserved with a number. So we have a whole parking program that if you live in a specific apartment, you have certain spaces dedicated to you that are signed with a number on them. And then we have other ones that are signed for guests. So we try to provide a balance of how many feet is it to your front door, and if you have guests at a particular building, how many feet do they have to walk to get to your building? So we've got it down to a science, and it appears to be working quite well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Rossi?
So for the multifamily residential development, what type of buildings or residents will these be? Will they be condos, apartments?
These will be market rate apartments.
And also, on the map, there was something called a Villas Healthcare. Can you provide a little more information?
Village Healthcare is not our property. It's not on our property that we're developing. It's not our project. Village Healthcare is a project to the south of us along 27th Street. That's I believe, a senior assisted living facility. We are
actually
not
a
affiliated
nursing-
with it.
That's a previously approved nursing home facility.
Thank you.
Chris?
Oh, looks good to me.
Greg?
First off, thank you for the changes. I know there was a lot of conversation with the residents in that area. With the landscaping between the development, and there's 3 or 4 properties in the subdivision already. I see the landscaping. Is there any type of berming or anything that is being considered or going to be putting up there?
I don't believe the grading plan reflects berming right now. We'd be happy to. I mean, there's a lot of trees. There's a lot of landscaping on this project. It's a big property. We'd be more than happy to move things around if there's sensitive spots, like a certain sight line. If you want to stand out there and a neighbor wants to look at it with us collectively and say, if you could really put it here or 10 feet over, we'd be happy to do things like that. We've done things like that before. So
And I haven't heard from any of the neighbors in that area, those few houses, so I don't know if they reached out or if you've spoken to them.
no, but we'd be happy to accommodate any requests in that fashion.
But okay. Thank you.
Alderman Lorik, you'll remember too, in some of the original versions of this site layout, those buildings were orientated more of a broadside versus a perpendicular to those homes. So I think that was a huge improvement too, to kind of not have the weight bear down on those adjacent residents, if you will. So I think that partially accommodated some of the concerns you raised with potential berming and things like that.
Hey, Greg? Go on. Brian?
Just the other comment that we had previously in the PUD and the rezoning concerning Falk Park that's to the east. And you guys can mark out that property line so we aren't impacting anything to the east, keeping our construction activities away from the county park. As far as the site itself goes, we've been working with them for some time here. We're getting some plans put together here that are looking pretty good, so I don't have any concerns with it.
Christina?
Actually, that was my question. How are you gonna, from the letter from the county park, how unique that wetland in this area is? How are you dealing with that?
So the letter, if I recall correctly, specified about a request to stake the property line. I think to Commissioner Johnson's comment, that's not an issue at all. And I believe the other comment was in regards to stormwater.
It was a stormwater, but also it seemed that you're gonna be impacting wetland, that you're gonna compensate to it somewhere else?
No, so nothing, the property to the east is owned by the county. And we will not, our development does not impact the county land in any fashion. We won't be grading on the property. Our development limits are within the boundary lines of the property. And plus, I believe the county's wetland starts, I believe, was 80 feet east of the property line, and I think our hard surface setback is about 19 feet. So I think we, at one of the first meetings, I remember you had asked that question. I thought we were closer to like 90 or 100 feet from like a parking lot to the county's wetland. So I think we'll be okay.
Good, thank you.
Hang on, Arden, you, if you want to speak, you got to come up. You can't come off the floor.
Arden Degner, 8540 South Pennsylvania Avenue. I have been a proponent of sidewalks, and I see a spread walkway to the community building, but where's the sidewalk on 27th Street? That's an important, they didn't have to build a sidewalk in front of their other, on Drexel Avenue, because we taxpayers paid for it originally. There should be a sidewalk here to allow, is there a sidewalk on 27th Street in this area required?
I'll defer that to engineering. I do not see one.
No, there's not a sidewalk in this area.
Is it required? Do you know?
It's
On a state highway?
It's not required, and it would not connect up to anything. There's no other sidewalks along 27th Street at this time out there.
That's a terrific omission, because this Drexel Avenue was not a state highway either, but we requested a sidewalk along it for the convenience of the people, and the use of that is surprising along Drexel Avenue. This should have a sidewalk, because eventually this will be filled up and it will have to meet the other properties that are north on 27th Street. And the other question I have is, I had such poor experience in my younger days with this fiber cement board that I see is mentioned. Is that only for garage construction, or is that going to be a part of the construction of these units?
They will use that as siding on the actual buildings as well as the garages, and it's standard throughout homes in the area that we have.
Is it going to be used on these homes too?
It will be used on these buildings, correct?
It has very poor qualities, masonry, solid masonry, not just hung on. I've had poor experience with that. And I think all of us see what ravages of wear and tear will do 20 years from now on that type of inferior masonry. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, Arden. Tony? Oh.
Just one point of clarification. Ms. Papelbon had earlier, when she was introducing the project, had mentioned about your ordinance that requires 65% masonry on your buildings. Drexel Ridge, we did not meet that requirement. The Plan Commission, as with a vote of the majority, if I recall correctly, has the ability to look at the design in its totality. And one of the interesting things that we noted in working in the city of Oak Creek is that that requirement, along with vinyl siding, is an acceptable exterior product. And you actually have to get Plan Commission approval to what I would consider, and I think most contractors would consider, an upgrade to go from vinyl to a cement board product. Fiber cement, it's a cementitious product, holds up better long term. So our percentage of masonry here is a little bit different, maybe slightly less than Drexel Ridge, because we've introduced a new product, the board and batten that Eric was describing earlier, that I think gives a better overall mix of materials and textures with the design. But I just want to circle back on, this is fiber cement. This is not a vinyl clad building.
Thank you. Nothing, Mike?
If I could just take 1 second, I wanted to touch on something Mr. DeRosa had said earlier about the fire suppression systems in these buildings. I think it should be noted that the fire department and myself are very appreciative of the efforts that they've put in dealing with suppression in these buildings. One of the items that may get missed is that, and I hope we never go there for a structure fire. That is our goal, is to prevent fires from occurring. But that prevention starts with what happens today. And the prevention aspect of getting that suppression system in place is a huge benefit to the residents of that complex and to the firefighters. So I just want to acknowledge that we're very appreciative of the efforts that Mr. DeRosa and his team have made in this area.
Greg, you had another question?
I know there'll be sidewalks along the Orchard Way extension. There's a lot of walking paths throughout the complex. And I may have answered my own question, but it looks like from the picture, these lightings are on the buildings. Is there additional lighting throughout the complex, or is it just the building light?
There are street poles and lights. Orchard Way is a public street. There's a certain city light that in photometric plan that we have to follow. We've been working with engineering on that, and then we'll have the same light pole we use through Drexel Ridge. In terms of spacing, will look very similar. The last thing we want to do is overlight this, but just provide enough that it serves its purpose and nothing more.
Okay.
I have the last one. Lot of the stuff I was going to say got covered. I agree with Alderman Lorik on enhanced landscaping to protect those 4 homes that exist there over on the south side. As far as the fiber cement board goes, I agree. I mean, building products have changed over the years. At one time, they never had vinyl siding. It was all aluminum. Personally, I have aluminum on my house. If somebody gave me an upgrade to fiber cement, I'd take it. That's just my preference. Sorry that Mr. Dagner didn't have a good experience with it, but it is kind of the trend these days, and it is a heavier product. Hydrant placement, I imagine you're working that out with the fire department. We're good there. We worked very hard to try to really not impact traffic as much as we could to the subdivision. We're over that pretty extensively, which is what accounted for those 4 spots versus that being a through road. I think it was a very good compromise and solution that our engineering department came up with along with the applicant. Ways back, and you probably worked this out already, driveway setbacks along Orchard Way, the proposed new Orchard Way. There's 3 buildings. The 15 units had some driveways. Did the setbacks make that? Brian, you brought that up.
Those buildings were actually pushed further to the west, so that setback actually grew from the first Plan Commission meeting when that comment came up.
Okay, so we're all set there. And then general question, how are you coming with the state to get access on the south side so we do access?
They've been very receptive. We're actually going back and forth with plans, and city engineering has been copied on that. We're not anticipating any issues. They're in support of what we're doing and what we're proposing. And I think it's more just a matter of cleaning up some plans, and we're anticipating that permit to be issued here hopefully in the next couple weeks.
Okay. I think that's all I really have going forward. So otherwise, I'm okay. Though just a little redundant on you folks, but sorry.
Mayor, I do have one additional
Go ahead,
question.
Chauncey.
We didn't talk much about the monument sign. Is it compliant?
The monument sign is actually not really part of this review because if it does meet all code requirements, it just needs a permit. It doesn't need Plan Commission approval. Staff is fine with it being backlit as presented.
Thank you.
And just for the record, the county did send that letter. We've acknowledged that letter about the parkway. And as Brian stated, we're in good shape with that. There's absolutely no threat to the wetlands back there, so should be good. Okay. Seeing nothing else? Motion.
Oracle move that the Plan Commission approves the site and building plans submitted by Tony DeRosa, HSI Properties, LLC, for the properties at 8300, 8304, 8310, and 8380 South 27th Street and 8370 South Orchard Way with the following conditions. Number 1, that all relevant code requirements are in effect. Number 2, that the certified survey map approved by the Common Council on June 19th, 2018 is recorded prior to submission of building permit applications. Number 3, this approval shall become null and void should the sale of the properties not occur per the conditional use permit. Number 4, that a copy of all wetland fill approval and/or permit from the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources is provided to the city prior to the submission of building permit applications. Number 5, that copies of all access approvals and agreements shall be provided to the city prior to the submission of building permit applications.
Alderman Lorik, if I can interrupt you there for just a moment, we did have a request for number 5 to be changed to prior to the issuance of building permit applications, and such request would be in conformance with the conditions and restrictions.
I'll amend that one to prior to the,
Wait, hang on. We're on condition 5?
Yes, prior to the issuance of building
Correct.
permits.
So number 5, that copies of all access approvals and agreements shall be provided to the city prior to the issuance of building permit applications. Number 6, that the exterior stone and brick veneer meets the minimum 4-inch thick requirement per code. Number 7, that the plans are revised to include locations for all mechanicals, transformers, and utilities. See condition 10 below. Condition number 8, that all mechanical equipment, transformers, and utility boxes, ground, building, and rooftop are screened from view. Number 9, that all required Common Council approvals for the use of native seed mix are obtained prior to the submission of building permit applications. And number 10, that all revised plans, site, building, landscaping, etc., are submitted in digital format for review and approval by the Department of Community Development prior to the submission of building permit applications.
Chandler seconds.
Roll call.
And I.
Johnston, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Lorik, aye.
Bekavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening. Item 5D is a plan review, site building, landscape, lighting, and related plans submitted by Donald Scholender, Hillwood Enterprises LP, for a distribution and warehouse facility on the property, 9700 South 13th Street. Gary?
The request is for a 4-story, 2.6 million square foot distribution and warehouse facility on the properties shown in red. The CSM and planned unit development were approved by the Common Council in August for these properties. On the screen is the proposed master development plan for the site itself. There are a couple of concerns with regard to setbacks that can be addressed in revisions to the plans. There are missing property lines for adjacent properties based on the approved CSMs. Therefore, parking setbacks in those specific areas cannot be confirmed. But again, revisions to the plans to incorporate that would satisfy that requirement. Truck and trailer parking areas on the southeast and east look like they incorporate a gravel strip that would be considered part of the parking stall itself, and there may be a slight encroachment into the southeast setback as a result. A chain link fence that crosses the southeast property line would have to be revised to conform to setback requirements. It can't actually be crossing the property line, but it can be on the property line. And we need to verify that the northwest corner of the building to the proposed public cul-de-sac meets the required setbacks. Those are things that we can do just with minor modifications to the site plan. Plan commissioners should be aware that there would be changes to the floodplain and wetland areas in this on these properties. Those modifications would require both FEMA and DNR approvals. Some of the things that would also be required: compensatory storage for the flood fringe encroachments. There is a question regarding the 57-acre tributary from the east conveyed through the site that would need to be verified. And the cul-de-sac needs to be relocated outside of the outlot and floodplain. These are adjustments that can be made as staff continues to work with the applicant. Access is proposed via the public road from Ryan Road to the cul-de-sac on the north. There are also 3 proposed access drives off of 13th Street, 2 restricted for employees and 1 for semi-trucks. Ryan Road, as you know, is a state highway, and South 13th Street is a county highway, so access approvals for both would be required from the state and from the county, and a TIA is currently in progress. There is also a public trail easement along the length of the eastern property line that's missing from the plans. However, the applicant is aware of that and has been has notified staff that the plans actually do respect that easement, and the plans will be revised to show it in the future. Parking is provided throughout the site. There's a large parking field for employees on the west side of the building. Trucks and tractors would be parked on the south and east sides of the building. Minimum requirements for offices are 1 stall for every 250 gross square feet, plus 1 stall for every peak employee at peak shift. Warehouse requires 1 stall for every 5,000 gross square feet, plus 1 stall for every peak shift employee. We have been made aware that a minimum of 1,000 employees would be on site for 2 shifts. This is a 24/7 operation that's proposed in this distribution area. The office, training, and break room areas comprise approximately 47,221 square feet. All other floors, comprising about 2.6 million square feet, comprise employee workstations on the perimeter of warehouse areas. With that information, there would be a requirement for 1,702 parking stalls total. The plans provide for 1,844 employee stalls, 294 truck and trailer stalls, and 85 reserved for future truck and trailer stalls. Although no information has been provided on trash enclosure locations, these are things that can be worked out with the applicant as staff continues to do so. Landscape plans have also been provided for the site. Those are still areas that are being worked on to address some code compliance issues. The 8-foot-tall black vinyl coated chain link fence around the truck docks and truck parking areas, as was previously discussed, would need to meet those setback requirements. There is a section of code that allows the Plan Commission to determine the required opacity of security fences. However, staff notes that with the landscaping plan, some of those areas would also be completely covered. The landscaping is proposed on the exterior portion of those fence areas. The building itself is proposed to be constructed with precast insulated concrete panels that would be painted. Windows would be on the ground level of the west elevation for the office area, also on each floor of the central office portion on the east. Trying to get to those renderings. There we go. So this is the west portion of the building. You'll see that the first floor does have that office area portion that's a bump out that has the windows. Some other perspectives on the top is the northwest view that's coming in from Ryan Road to that cul-de-sac. And then the southeast view, this is where the truck docks begin. This is an alternate image that was presented for Plan Commission review and consideration. This mimics additional windows so that it would be viewed from Ryan Road as having that window facade. Additionally, the rooftop units that would be proposed as part of the building would be screened by the parapet along the roof, and any areas that might be above that parapet wall, if they would require screening, the applicant has acknowledged that they would work with staff to create the proper screening for those areas. Staff comments were provided to the applicant as were included in your report, and they are currently being addressed. If the Plan Commission is satisfied with the plans as presented with the conditions, there is a suggested motion that the Plan Commission approves the site and building plan submitted by Donald Schoenheider, Hillwood Enterprises LP for the property at 9700 South 13th Street, subject to conditions 1 through 12. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Carrie. We have a few residents wishing to speak. We'll call them up first, get their questions, and we'll try to answer all the questions at once. So first, Maureen Wilms. Come on up, Maureen.
Maureen Wilms, 991 West Leeds Court, Oak Creek. The first question I have is in regards to the park that's been slated for the southeast corner. What would be the timeline on that? Is that going to be in conjunction with the development of this property or a post-development? Also, I'd like to know that with the truck traffic that's going to be coming on 13th Street, where the entrance is on 13th, is there going to be a traffic light, a roundabout, or something to help control the traffic through that area? On Friday night, I was coming home at about 4:15, and the freeway traffic had been diverted onto 13th Street. And for me to turn into English Air took over 5 minutes to make a left-hand turn from the traffic going north. So that's still something that needs to be figured into the whole plan. There was also mention that the trucks would not be allowed to go south on 13th Street. They would be encouraged to use the Ryan Road on and off ramp. Would that stay the same once the Elm Road on and off ramp is done, or would the traffic completely go south then? Also, they had talked that the traffic analysis would be done at this point. I just wanted to add that it was not completed when the busing was in service, and so the busing through that area, because school hasn't started yet, just to factor into that. And then I was wondering if they could do something a little nicer than a chain link fence around the property, since it is so close to a residential area. And then also, with such a large property, why is the semi-entrance so close to the residential area? They have all that land to work with, and they chose to put it as close to the houses as possible. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I think I got them all. If I miss them, remind me of one, okay? Next, Arden.
Arden Degner, 8540 South Pennsylvania Avenue. I too have those concerns about traffic. In fact, my concern is that this is a TIF area. And since the TIF is able to pay for items within a half mile of it, does that mean now that the residents of Oak Creek, through the TIF, will pay for, say, a 4-lane in and off ramp off of I-94? Certainly, when we have this crush of trucks and cars, this is just the culmination. We already have approved a FedEx one. We already are approving just a ton of cars, and this is already a truck stop. Why is not this considered as a cost for this particular developer instead of laying it on the taxpayers?
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would wish to speak on the item? Come on up, sir.
Stephen Brosh, I live on 913 West Ryan Road. Concerned about the entrance for Ryan Road onto the property. When they were people were going down east on Ryan Road into the building area, the lights would shine right into my windows. Also, they're talking about a park that would be directly behind my house. And they're talking about removing the stones that are in like a creek.
That was a resident's suggestion, and I don't believe we're anywhere. We'll get to that.
And then I was also asking, is there going to be a division between the park and my property? So people could not walk into my actual property. (913) West Ryan Road.
Thanks.
We're gonna try to answer them all in bulk. So I jotted down the notes. If I miss something, just remind me, and we'll see if anybody else has questions before we try to answer them. Please come up, ma'am.
Jadranka Bilangia, 1050 West Dover Drive. So my house, or the backyard of the house, is right before the wetland. So I wonder, what are you going to do? You have any solution for the water that is coming down because they're going to build a barrier between us? Right now we have a wetland, so the water goes, but I'm afraid of flooding in my backyard.
And you're in English Air, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yep, right there. So
Okay.
they're going to be right in my backyard. So, thank you.
Thank you. Sir, you had something?
Ryan Schrader, 910 West Finch Court. I too echo the statements about flooding. All that water that comes from the south end of that property goes through a small creek that goes all the way down through my backyard and in the Bird subdivision, south of Oakwood. So I want to know how that water's being handled. Another thing that I'd like to have addressed would be, we're looking to build a park, but we're having a park facing a semi parking lot, and the same thing with the bike trail. So if they're looking to put an easement for a bike trail in, how are we differentiating between either the park or the same thing bike trail to have they can put a berm in, or they can do something so that they can differentiate as well as prevent access from people going off that trail. And with this as well, with that park going in, how are we going to have access to it? I understand it's through that subdivision, but is there going to be parking spots for residents in the local neighborhood such as mine? Or how are we supposed to be able to have a safe spot to park, and as well as getting to that, because that's pretty good wetland to cross in order to get to that park area where they're talking about.
Okay, thank you. Sir, come on up.
My name is Andy Kirchen. I live at 1100 West Dover. The backyard of my property faces the proposal. My main concern is going to be like the berm. I don't know if that's for discussion tonight or what it is.
Yeah.
That's one of my biggest concerns is the height and what's going on top of the berm. Some kind of barrier, coniferous trees, something like that, just so they don't lose their leaves in the winter. Also concerned with the park, who's going to be servicing it, keeping it up, that sort of stuff. And then also, just as Jadranka's talk, she's one of my neighbors, just as far as the flow of the water, make sure, if the water's going to be flowing down the berm, make sure there's some kind of barrier between us and the berm, some kind of gully or something, so we don't get flooded out.
Okay, thank you. Come on up, sir.
Mike Dudzik, 1350 West Daniel Lane. Concern is traffic, and I know you've discussed it at length before, but you have 3 exits going out to 13th Street. All the employees are going to exit out that way from what I see on the plan. Only one exit out to Ryan Road. First of all, do we have any feedback from the state for Ryan Road and or the county with regard to upgrades on those streets? And again, looking at it again, I don't understand why there's only one exit to Ryan Road, because that's non-residential, and putting all that traffic out in 13th Street, which is all the employees, of which you said there was 1,700, I think, that's going to be a problem. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else before we, come on up, sir.
Hassanin, 10110 Southampton Drive. I live in English Air. I have a concern about the parking. I hear that it was just mentioned that the trucks will be parked on the south side. And I guess that the south side is very close to the subdivision. Now, what are the consequences of operating these trucks at the south side on the subdivision? We're talking about probably pollution, noise, also where they be entering the parking lot from 13th Street. That also will cause congestion and many problems and traffic. So I don't know. I would like to suggest to since we have a railroad on the east side, why not having the parking behind these buildings between the rail and is there enough space to have the parking there? This is a suggestion. I don't have the details of the project to be able to judge it more. And the other thing is, one of the ladies probably she emphasized on the, you know, how it's going to be looking. You know, if there is a possibility for the fence, using just a fence will make it look worse. Plus, I just was looking on the photos there or the pictures. I don't know if there will be some kind of like tall trees to cover as much as possible from these buildings between 13 Road and the project. Also, it's very important that we have still good view and avoid noise and pollution or anything. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. Anyone else before we start kind of trying to answer the questions here? Okay. Seeing nothing, we have a couple comments that we want to read in that were emailed in. So, Chris, you want to do it or you want me to do it? Either way.
I received an email from Ed and Yvonne Sira that they want read in the record. Their address is 1500 West Lois Lane. They cannot be here tonight due to other circumstances. So it appears that the site plan at the main semi-truck access is located on the south end of the development where the guardhouse is located, and that the road leading out to Ryan Road is now merely an access road. At the initial informational meeting that they had attended a month ago, the exact opposite was discussed. Where the main semi-truck access came off of Ryan Road, controlled by a signalized intersection. Why is all the semi-truck traffic being brought in so far south where all the single-family residential is located? Having semi-trucks enter in and off of exit and enter into off of Ryan Road seems to make more sense when planning from a planning perspective. If the southern proposed semi-truck access point is allowed, is there a way for the city of Oak Creek to implement and enforce a rule that could prohibit semi-trucks from traveling south onto 13th Street from this development? How, with all of the trucks associated with the development, will it impact the air quality to the residential areas? We don't have a neighborhood park delineated in the plan yet, so where is it located is a question. And then what concessions, if any, has the developer made with the plan to display sensitivity and consideration towards existing neighborhoods to the south? Will 13th Street be reconstructed as a part of this development? And then the intersection of Ryan Road is already very difficult to get through at various times of the day right now. All this additional traffic will make this intersection even worse. Ed and Yvonne Sira.
Okay. Thank you. And then, excuse me, we're also forwarded by Supervisor Logston, Mike Dudzik. We got a copy of what you emailed in. So, but you were here to represent yourself, so that's great. A lot of questions. Some of them kind of crossed over one another. We'll just kind of start with Maureen's on the park timeline. We're going to kind of take this as a group between myself, staff, and everybody, and answer it to the best of our ability. So, park timeline. Andrew, you want to take that one?
Yeah, why don't I try to, I'll address the park questions, of course, and I'll try to address some of the traffic impacts and, the forthcoming TIA, and I think some of the on-site stuff, chain link fencing, stormwater management, maybe that's better served, the public's better served by having the applicant answer that. So in regards to the park, as part of this business park and the assemblage of land involved, the county and the city partnered with the developer of the park to kind of swap some lands and really enable this business park. And our contribution to that partnership as a city was to build a neighborhood park. This area has been underserved from a park and recreation standpoint. We've looked for a decade or more for a park in this area of the city. Ultimately, the Carrie can Carrie brought up the graphic that shows where the park will be. I don't think that's the entire parcel. I think it goes further south than that. Ultimately, that park and the features of that park are going to be what the neighbors in that area want it to be. And we'll undertake a planning process right away next year. I'm putting planning staff on the mark on that one right now, but our intention is to start that planning process next year with maybe construction the following year. We don't have to wait for some magical time within the life of this TIF district where funds are available from property development or anything like that. We can get started on the park right away. And again, what is in that park will be what the residents who will be using it mostly would like. I believe in the TID project plan, we had about a $350,000 line item for the development of the neighborhood park. The term neighborhood park is also really a definition. By neighborhood park, we're not expecting this to be a destination park. We're not expecting this to be attractive for area people to drive to this park to recreate. We don't envision. I'm not foreclosing on those options, but we're not envisioning a large parking lot or anything like that because that's not really what the definition of a neighborhood park is. So the council, the city, as part of the negotiation with the county to make this business park happen, has committed itself to building the park. It would actually be a county park that the city builds and maintains. So it would be the city of Oak Creek's maintenance responsibility moving forward. That formal, agreement obviously hasn't materialized with the county on maintenance responsibilities and all of that, but conceptually speaking, the city will be maintaining it. In regards to some of the traffic impacts and the pending traffic impact analysis, it would be wonderful to have a traffic impact analysis now to show exactly what features are going to be improved from a 13th Street standpoint, from a Ryan Road standpoint. Those things will be improved. Traffic will be, the traffic will be generated in this area. I think we all know that. We would, again, having the hindsight of the traffic impact analysis would be great. It's just not syncing up from a timeline perspective of the city's commitment from an entitlement standpoint to the landlord and ultimately this large user. What got the staff okay with that, and I guess I'll offer this tonight, if we had the traffic impact analysis tonight, that's exactly what we would, as the developer, essentially, would build to make sure that their traffic was, not congested at this intersection and the general area. There's been a team of engineers from the county, from the city, and from the state who will tell the developer exactly what it is they need to build to make sure traffic isn't an issue. That plan actually looks out not just with this specific user or this specific business park, but it looks at a larger area and what traffic demand may be out until, I think it's 20 years, 2039. So it's not just a narrow focus on this project. It's a much longer view. If we had the benefit of the traffic impact analysis tonight, we really wouldn't be any further because we would just know exactly what those features will be. Those would be exactly what would need to be constructed. And we could argue and debate about those items, but I would offer that the engineers from those various entities who are dictating to the city and to the developer what would need to be built are smarter than us in that regard. We would, as the TIA becomes known, definitely as we're ramping up for construction of those, of those improvements, absolutely will be improvements and widening and capacity building on 13th and Ryan Road. We would reach out in advance to these neighbors and let them know exactly, what was planned. We could have a discussion on that. We will not, just begin, moving dirt and impacting their lives for a period of time. So, we will commit to a public process for those inconvenienced neighbors. Once we know the unknowns become knowns with the pending analysis. As for the orientation of the building and why access predominantly from a truck standpoint comes off of 13th Street, I'll let the applicant talk a little bit more about that. But this is a very large building. And although it's a rather large site, you can only have a north-south You can only have a north-south orientation or an east-west orientation. Original plans, we were looking at, an east-west orientation. That would mean the broad side of this building and all of those dock bays that you see on the eastern side of the building would be facing the neighborhood. I think, and the applicants can speak a little more to it, what we attempted to do was have the best visual aesthetic, turn the building perpendicular to the neighbors as opposed to broadsiding the neighbors, and really trying to do our best to mask the aesthetic of those dock bays by coupling them with the railroad bed and not making the neighbors look at that for time immemorial, so to speak. Again, I think the applicant can speak to that. There were considerations in the traffic impact analysis as well that necessitated 13th Street being the preferred truck route, if you will. We as a city will do absolutely everything we can to ensure that truck traffic is not going south, and that they have to use, essentially take right-hand turns out of their parking lot and go north to the Ryan Road interchange. There are design elements that we can put in place to make sure that trucks are not being not being routed to the south past the neighborhood. When we have no timeline at all as to when the Elm Road interchange is going in. I think it's a good opportunity here to make sure that the improvements that we make to prevent the trucks from going south, I think those can remain. I don't have a crystal ball, but that would be something the city would, affect for the neighbors. I don't know if there's any other specific questions from the commissioners on the TIA, but we can get an update on timing from the developer on this. But I think we should maybe talk a little bit more of the on-site questions that we had and let the applicant speak to those.
Right. Just ask on the. Sure. Just since you're on the TAA, so right now, granted, there's nothing essentially we can do about the traffic right now because it is what it is based upon the orientation of, this building on a property. When is that TAA going to be done? Is that September 4th?
I'll let the applicant speak directly to that. I think they have their traffic analysis engineer here. One thing I failed to mention, and I'm just delaying the answer to your question, or deferring. What we will have in the end, before this development takes place, is development agreements. We'll have development agreements with the business park developer, and we will have development agreements with Hillwood, the landlord for this large user building that you see here. Those development agreements will ensure that those developers, that developer, that large user, at any cost, builds to what the TIA builds to. So this isn't just a promise that we're given. This will be contractually an obligation among the city's partners in this development that whatever needs to be built at whatever cost will be built. So it's not just we're going to throw $5 million at the project and we'll see how far that goes, and maybe we'll look at future impacts and address them into the future. That's not going to be the case. So,
but just in one more thing, with all due respect, right now the way the building's positioned on the property, we're funneling it to 13th Street. There's really no option for it to go north to Ryan Road. So, if we change the orientation of that on the property to make it go northbound, right now you got three columns or roads of traffic already coming to 13th Street. That's just for the cars to exit, not to mention how many trucks are going to be going. So that's my 2 cents right now.
I do have a question. So I believe you mentioned that the TIA is not complete yet, correct?
That's correct.
So how was 13 was determined to be the entrance and exit if the TIA is not complete? I'm just confused here.
I'd let the applicant speak to that. I haven't been engaged in the TIA process. That's not my role as a city administrator, but they can definitely speak to that process and those inputs.
Very quickly, Brian, can we kind of address the water and the flooding for the folks in English Air back in the park area? Hang tight, sir. Just one moment, please.
Yes, we can look at that. part of what their comments are stating is for the overall site development, talking about the berm that goes along the south side. That is not part of this particular site plan. So this plan does not include that berm being constructed along that south property line, north side of English Air. For this site, there are four detention ponds that are being constructed to detain the water, slow down the water, and Adam might be able to help me out here a little bit. All that water is being discharged to the wetlands in the southeast corner, or the north one goes to the, all of them go north? All of them go to the north to the creek, not to the wetlands, okay? So those go up to the north and out that way. When we get to this piece to the south, we'll definitely address that drainage issue and that concern for where that water is going off that berm and into your backyards.
Because we're only talking about the large user right now. We're not talking about the park in its totality. That's why that's not being discussed right now.
Again, Hashim Hassanin, I lived in English Air. With full respect to everyone here, I heard Mr. I don't know your name, but he was talking about the congestion and traffic on 13. I don't know who lives on 13 and how can you see 13 at this moment. We have many trucks and 18-wheel trucks and so many trucks coming out from a quick trip now. So and this delays us to 13 is our only access to our grocery stores, to wherever we go. 13 is the only street that we have access to the rest of the city. And now it is, there are so many trucks now coming out from Quick Trip. In addition, or you're gonna add all these trucks from the project, work, and this is gonna be a real problem. I have a concern. It's when I hear this, it sounds to me that someone is making it easy or it looks easy. This is not true. If you go to Ryan Road to 13 and every day from the English Air to your work as I do, I never ever went outside without seeing trucks on 13 on Ryan Road that they delay us about 5 minutes now. When you add these trucks also, what's going to happen to 13? So I recommend that we find another a solution for the trucks that coming into the Quick Trip somehow to avoid this congestion, because we are now creating another issue. There is an issue there. I'm sorry about this, but I have to address it. Because it's really now it is now a problem. We avoid to go to the. I'm sorry. We avoid to go. It's easier to go to take the 94 freeway, but I don't take it because I don't want to stay behind 3 trucks, because I will never get there. So I prefer to proceed straight to Drexel, and Drexel has construction, and then go to the freeway, as an example. So this is an issue. I think we have to look at the real what's going on there. Find a solution for the Quick Trip trucks, why they are there, and how things can be resolved there.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No, you're right. There is a problem. There is an issue, and that's why we're doing the traffic impact analysis. It takes into account the existing traffic that's going on for Croft Hill, Quick Trip, any business along there. Of course, the residents there. We employ a third party. We don't do it within the city. We have a third party do it to help us do this. These are professional traffic engineers that take into account growth. They take into account this subdivision, not only this user, but other users, and they try to accommodate. So if they tell us, as Andrew said, there's going to be a 4-lane road there with designated turn lanes, that's what they're going to get, because it's their job to keep traffic flowing to the best of their ability.
I just want to make sure that this is taken, this was thought of.
And I want to assure you, we're working for that.
And,
believe me, our intent isn't to hang you up in traffic.
I do trust that.
So,
Thank you very much.
But we will have the applicant
Yeah.
come up in a little bit and address some of those things.
You know, just to add to that, we have the state obviously involved due to the state Highway 100, which is Ryan Road, and we have the county involved due to 13th Street being a county trunk highway. They they don't have any better situation than they're in now because they get to tell us what we have to build, and they don't have to put a red nickel into the whole project. So they are not, from a budgetary standpoint, going to be looking for ways to say, oh, geez, you know, we got to crimp and save a little bit here or there. You know, the business park developer, the business park partners that we have are paying for this roadway initially. So it's not that the county or state having to come up with the money, you know, that might, you know, influence their design a bit. It's really going to be an objective analysis and with those overlapping agencies, and they're going to tell us what it's going to take so traffic isn't congested and is actually probably improved from the condition we're seeing out there right now.
Thank you. You have to come up to the microphone, please. And then you know the deal. Name and address, please.
Wenka, South 13th Street. We keep talking about truck traffic going south on 13th Street. Could somebody explain to me what are you considering a truck? 1 ton and over, something with a commercial sign on it? I mean, if you keep the semis from going south, okay, that's fine. But if I get 50 box trucks and everything else going south every hour, it's just as bad as having the semis going.
Well,
So specify what you mean by a truck.
I guess I specify any truck coming in there, whether it's a cube truck or a semi truck, that it would go right. It would go north. Okay.
Everybody's talking
Because-
semis. Nobody's specifying
And they,
1 ton.
You know, okay, so take a UPS truck.
Right.
If you're coming out of that facility and you're delivering their product, at least in my view, this is what I'm imagining, they would go right and they'd go north.
Okay.
That I would push very hard for them only to go that way, to protect the neighbors to the south.
Sure.
And just to be clear, Elm Road is scheduled to go in. Andrew explained we don't have a timeline on it. Keep in mind, there is no access point to Elm Road from 13th at this point in time. So when you get on or off at Elm Road, you have to do it from 27th Street. So there's really no value in them going south at this point.
Okay. And last question. I know it's on the plans. We have that dock on the south side of the building here. Is there going to be any kind of a retention pond on that side for contaminants not making it into the wetlands? Has that been addressed?
We'll have Adam address that. They do show a pond, so hang on 1 minute. Yes, ma'am, you have to come up, please.
Carmen Beavis, 10145 Southampton
You
Drive.
can pull that down.
Oh, I'm sorry.
If you're vertically
Yeah.
challenged like myself.
I'm so short. Carmen Beavis, 10145 Southampton Drive. So the back of my lot is on 13th Street. I see those semis coming from PP&G or wherever they're coming from. When they drive on that road, my house shakes. And I don't know where you're going to start. You said you're doing a 4-lane on 13th Street?
No, I'm just saying if they tell us to do one, we will have to do one. I'm not saying we're going to. Whatever the state and the traffic analysis tells us to do is what we're going to have to do.
Okay, so for example, they decide that they're going to do a 4-lane road on 13th Street, which is a trunk road, which is a county road. It goes all the way to Caledonia, all the way to Racine. Okay, I used to work in Kenosha, so I know the road there. Okay, now, are they going to stop the 4-lane at Oakwood Road or before you get to Oakwood Road?
The traffic analysis would tell us that. We don't know that at this time. We don't even know if it would be 4.
All right, because
I used it as an example.
Right. What I'm saying is that they will be taking piece of my land because the backside of my land is on 13th Street.
You are correct, and they would have to compensate you for that. Am I correct with that, Brian?
Yes.
and you would be compensated if they used, if they had to take that right away from you. They wouldn't just take it from you. They'd have to pay you a just price for the footage they take.
Yeah, because all we have there is ditches. We don't have
Correct.
anything. We don't have sidewalks. We don't have anything.
Correct.
Okay. So I just need to get my little 2 cents out there because I'm not very happy with what's going on. I can't see myself looking on a 4-story building like what's going on right now from out my windows because I have a 2-story house. And if there's a 4-story building going on, it's going to be taller than my house.
Yes, it will be.
Okay. And are they? I'm looking at the drawings because from my experience with the City of Milwaukee Planning Department, I know that when you do a drawing, okay, are you going to see the landscaping on that property? Because when you go down to Kenosha and see where Amazon put their building, all you see is concrete. You don't see a landscaping. Are we going to have a good landscaping? The trucks go around the back, not in the front, where we as homeowners drive and see, still have that aesthetic, what we had for 25 years in English Year?
Well,
it's a concern.
You won't have the same thing. It will be different. A 4-story building is going to impact you, and it's going to be a different view than what you're looking at now. And we can't hide it behind trees that tall right away. But we will make every effort, as we get into the plans with the berm and the trees. And believe me, we have a pretty healthy landscape plan that we require. And particularly, we've heard English Air loud and clear. We need to protect you guys as much as we can.
You can take some of my pine trees, which is 60 feet.
I know they take a little ways to get up there, but again, we have a really good forester, and she would be the one to really call the shots.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Adam, would you like to come up, or would the applicant like to come up and address some of the stuff from traffic analysis to the flooding or the water issues? And then I got some more notes here. Maybe I can just throw them out here quickly, and you can give me the answer.
Greg Skovich with Hillwood, 9525 West Bryn Mawr, Rosemont, Illinois. So I think I'd like to introduce my consultants.
Oh, that would be great. That'd be
But
great.
you tell me if you'd like to start with some civil or traffic.
Let's
or
the traffic's the biggest issue. Let's start with the TIA and what you can tell us about the entrances off 13th. The one man, Steven, he wanted to know about, he's on Ryan Road, the entrance with the lights hitting him.
Certainly. So I guess from a timing perspective, we started this process probably a year ago when the park was originally intended to be a multi-site development. When the large user theory came into play, we approached the DOT and asked them if we could revise or amend the existing Phase 1 traffic impact analysis. And they granted that, but they certainly rolled up their sleeves and asked a tremendous amount of information about the user and the load that he was going to be introducing to the network as it was compared to the previously assumed development. So we had a very long, many conversations with not only the state, but also the county, because we are dealing with a state road and a county road, and both departments of transportation have approved our Phase 1. And the Phase 1 part of the traffic impact analysis is confirming that we are studying the appropriate area that is going to be impacted by not only this load, but as Andrew mentioned it, the load that's going to be introduced for future developments through 2039. So that was what Phase 1 determined. Phase 2 is the next step. Phase 2 takes that load and spins the engineering component as to what physically needs to happen to support this load. We are currently in the middle of the Phase 2 document. We're preparing this document. We're going to have a better sense of what the infrastructure improvements are going to look like at the conclusion and acceptance of this Phase 2 report. And from a timing perspective, John Bieberwitz is my consultant. He has a better sense of how long it takes the state and county to review this document. So I would ask John to speak to his experiences relative to timing and where we are at with the Phase 2 document that is pending submission.
Thanks, Greg. John Bieberwitz from Traffic Analysis and Design in Cedarburg, Wisconsin. We are in the process of doing the Phase 2 TA, as Greg mentioned. Where we're at in that, we're almost to the draft stage of the report. Once everyone reviews it on the project team, it will be submitted to both the Wisconsin DOT, Milwaukee County, as well as the City of Oak Creek. By state statute, they have up to 90 days to review and respond to that. What that means is that they will issue a letter basically saying that you must do these items for your access permit. In other words, you must improve this intersection, you must add traffic signals here, widen this roadway, and so on and so forth. Typically, what we've been seeing is that it's not been 90 days. It's been somewhere between 30 to 45 days for the review and comment period.
You speak a little bit, John and Greg, to the orientation of the building, and obviously you've had many, many discussions with the DOT and the county. Why the utilization of 13 versus Ryan Road for the semis, I think, or the truck traffic, I should say. I think that's pretty key for the residents to know and understand.
Sure. Well, I think I would be remiss if I didn't mention that, as sensitive as the community is to congestion, the user is equally sensitive. He needs product coming in and out of the facility as well as associates. So the user wants to make sure that this is right as well. So they are vested. They want to make sure that whatever the state and county come back with is executed, and that there is no interruption to their service. Relative to the orientation of the building, and John can speak to this because he's had the city, the state and county were both cautioned by the perceived amount of traffic that was going on 13th Street, and we went to great efforts to redivert a lot of that traffic. And unfortunately, in such small exhibits, you can't really see the improvements that we've done to promote traffic leaving the site through the cul-de-sac. But I can speak to the orientation relative to the truck entrance. The truck entrance, as you can see, does create a lengthy access road along the southern limit of the building. What's important to a user is to promote counterclockwise movement around a building. And it provides for a safer environment, not only for the truck drivers, but for the associates that are located within the yard. And why you're promoting a counterclockwise movement is so that the operator of the truck is backing into his dock position and never has a blind turn. So if you can imagine, he's looking over his left shoulder and he's backing into the position, whereas if it were a clockwise orientation, he would have a blind turn, which would thereby create a less safe environment for not only the truck driver, but also the associates in the loading yard. Secondly, as the cul-de-sac is going to be dedicated and city right-of-way, our area for queuing of tractor trailers is vastly limited on the north side and the cul-de-sac, and we wanted to avoid any potential for any deliveries backing up and queuing onto public right-of-way. Locating the access road on the south provides us with a much longer queuing section, so that we aren't, in the event, to the extent that it was needed, we aren't queuing tractor trailers onto public right-of-way. So that was a couple reasons why we oriented the building in the fashion that we did and tried to promote the truck traffic down 13th Street. John, if you could talk to your conversations with the state and the county and some of the improvements that we've done to promote vehicular egress and ingress onto Ryan Road, I think that would help alleviate.
Sure, one of the things that the exhibit doesn't show is the details for that access to Ryan Road. What we're proposing from a traffic standpoint is for that to be a 4-lane divided section, as well as signalized with Ryan Road to promote that as the main entrance to the facility. That'd also be heavily signed as the main entrance, and also be the, quote, main entrance for employee traffic to and from the building. So that whole section from essentially Ryan Road south to the building parking lot will be a 4-lane divided roadway to enhance that maneuver.
By comparison, the cross-section of the two employee accesses, are those 2-lane?
I'm sorry, yes. So the accesses to 13th Street will be 2-lane only and signed appropriately.
Okay. Is traffic-wise, I think we've covered just about most of my notes. Talked about parking on the south side. About pollution and noise. There were concerns about that with the truck traffic, and that's specifically to the subdivision to the south.
Certainly. The user is very sensitive to both pollution and noise. We didn't have to, but we did commission a noise impact study for internal records. And we've located all of the receptors in and around the development. And while there are no ordinances that we found relative to noise pollution from an industrial development, we have maintained a personal 50 decibel receptor limit, which wanted to make sure everyone was aware that we're sensitive to not only the noise created by the site, but also anything else related to pollution. Relative to pollution, apologies. The user's very sensitive, very forward, very progressive relative to environmental quality. And they're instituting across the nation a number of initiatives relative to green building, and they want to limit the amount of pollution generated by these facilities. And with the rapid throughput, if a truck is sitting idling, that truck is not moving product. So they want those trucks in and out of the facility as quickly as possible, so that there is no downtime for that tractor trailer.
Okay. I think we covered the parking on the east side. It had to do with building orientation, entering the lot. I know we're not there. Fence upgrades. It's a chain link right now. Is that what's proposed? I mean, we probably want to enhance that at some point in time. Water. How about your environmental guy? Introduce him and bring him on up.
Adam.
Hi, Adam. I think you kind of heard the residents very concerned about the park, and Brian did a nice job with it. But go ahead, you're the guy that figured it all out.
Yeah, I'll just echo what Brian said. This facility is not necessarily directing water to the south, so the concerns of everyone going into that well, and this facility is actually redirecting a little bit of the farm field north to the Oak Creek. We have a significant amount of ponds on the site to detain the water, slow it down, clean it up. There was one comment of cleaning the water prior to the discharge to the wetlands. We are going to be a dramatic improvement to the water quality as compared to a raw farm field every year. The amount of sediment generated by a farm field is second to none in this state, and that's one of the reasons why the water quality standards have been put into place, is there's been so much pollution in our waterways over the years. These ponds are all wet bottom ponds, so they will do their part to clean the water from a sediment loading standpoint. Oodles and oodles and oodles, and Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewage District requirements are so far in advance of the rest of the state requirements that the water quality component is almost going to be clean drinking water when you come out. And granted, you never drink water out of a parking lot, but sediment loading wise, it's dramatically going to be better. And again, it's all going north to the Oak Creek.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, Adam. Name and address, please.
My apologies. Adam Arts, 15850 West Blue Mound Road, Brookfield, Wisconsin.
Okay. Have I missed anything in regards to the wetlands and the water? These were my notes. Brian?
Not to that. I just want to touch on one other thing. Elm Road, talking about time frame for that. That is part of the north-south corridor project the DOT is doing. That project has been awarded to Walsh Construction. That project will be starting overall for the north-south corridor. The north segment will be starting middle of September. The Elm Road interchange itself will be under construction next year.
However, just to add to that, Brian, there's not an easterly connection from Elm Road interchange to 13th Street per what the mayor said earlier. That still holds despite the fact the balance of the interchange is being constructed in the next 18 to 24 months or whatever the case may be.
Correct.
And are they also closing the 27th Street on and off exit from 94 at that point too?
That'll be the first thing that gets closed,
In
and
September,
that'll be
right?
closed this year.
This year, yeah.
Yes. Just one other thing that had been brought up about the park, the resident on Ryan Road, that park development is not part of the site plan. That's part of the overall development. So again, we don't have plans for that yet to address that comment, but we'll look at that when those plans and those roadway plans for that cul-de-sac road come in.
And also to be clear, we don't have the berm yet.
Correct.
Or the trees, but I mean, we will make every effort to protect you, so we can't really give you the height, but boy, we'll try to go as high as we can as long as it works environmentally. I don't know if that's the correct word. Christina?
Okay, so I guess I would like to echo the residents since I live in this neck of the woods. I take Ryan exit quite a bit on the 94 west or east, either or. I know right now there are a lot of congestion, but this is due to the bridge reconstruction happening there. However, when that being done, we have a weigh station by the Pilot gas station there. So that's an encouragement for the trucks to exit at that specific location and go onto right on 13th Street, or yes, right on 13th, and go into that direction. So whether we have this development there or not, there is some significant amount of truck entering and exiting to go back on 94. So I don't know, without seeing the TIA, I have a huge concern with that development from traffic perspective and delays.
Thank you. I'm going to hit the stone. One of the residents brought up.
Well,
there's
Mayor,
some-
before you continue, you were asking anything about water?
Oh, yes.
And there was a question from one of the residents about the flow of water. I don't know if that was addressed or
we
not.
got that.
You did?
Adam took care of that.
Okay.
Um,
Thank you.
The stones. One of the residents were here a couple meetings back, and Stephen asked about the stones. Supposedly there were some big boulders left over from the railroad. At this time, the only reason they were ever brought up is somebody brought them up and said, "Let's do something unique with them," because they've been there forever. I don't know.
Mayor, Commissioners, Mike Faber, Capstone Quadrangle. I'm the developer of the park, Pewaukee, Wisconsin. When we effectuate the swap with the county, the stones will become my property. They are the old quarried stones that were the bridge abutment for where the railroad passed in the exact spot that this cul-de-sac road will spot. The railroad went through there from 1872 to 1906 before it was moved to the east. So when we were negotiating for the acquisition of this land, I saw that as a great opportunity to keep that history alive. And we plan to harvest those quarried stones and use them to create a small gathering space in the pocket park that is planned to be just north of the creek on the east side of that cul-de-sac road.
Okay.
The primary purpose is not a recreational park. The primary purpose of, we call it a pocket park because it's very small. It's not for recreating. It's simply a space where we will try to keep certain pieces of history of this land, including who Ryan Road was named after, the railroad formerly going through in the same spot, and these stones having been the abutments for that railroad crossing, and the history of the land ownership. Most of the large parcels of land here were in these families for over 100 years. So we'd like to have, what we intend to create is a monument to tell and keep this history alive.
Thank you for that explanation. I did not know that, so thank you.
Just real quick, does that go, the pocket park, so is that over on the property then? That's not going to be part of the neighborhood park, that's separate?
Correct. It's completely separate from the neighborhood park. We just wanted it included. It's in our budget to spend that money and make a historical reference.
And then, again, as Brian stated, we don't have the park, so we really can't address the access. We know we're going to access one from the neighborhood, and of course, we'll have to figure out how to get it off 13th in some way, shape, or form. Park and bike trails. Doug was here at the last meeting, and he kind of explained that we do have a proposed bike trail on the east side of the tracks by the FedEx, but in all likelihood, that bike trail would run alongside the tracks on the west side and then access the park from the back side of it, I guess. That would be the east side. So hopefully we kind of covered that. Andrew, I guess you can take this one. Our TIFs do go within can be expanded out to a half mile. but we do not intend to pay for a state exit or entrance ramp improvement on Ryan. Can you touch on that one?
That's part of the TIA, which I mean, they're just redoing Ryan Road interchange now. I would hope that the state, in their wisdom, builds that to a capacity for future development in the area. They went through, obviously, the process like we are on a more global scale. The way that the tax increment utilization was, I think, a little mischaracterized with the comment that was made earlier. The city of Oak Creek, me and you, and most of the people in the room, if not, well, most of the people in the room, are not paying for these improvements. These will be paid for by the tax increment associated with this large user parcel, and only this large user parcel. That's the way the tax increment district, mechanism works. The property taxes from the new building within this business park or some bounded area will be paying for the improvements, whatever those improvements are, to the 13th Street and Ryan Road, not the general fund of the city.
Okay, thank you. The chain link fence, we mentioned that. We're not there yet, but again, you kind of heard the residents. We'd probably be looking for something better than that. And then Maureen had the traffic on 13th. Will there be a light or a roundabout? I think we covered that in the traffic impact analysis. What's going to be there is what they tell us is going to be there. Did I miss anything? I know you guys were all taking notes too, and I pretty much hogged the floor tonight. And then I'll put it out for you guys for questions, but apologize. Yes, sir.
Andy Kirchen, 1100 Westover. Is there a timing aspect to that berm area? I know you mentioned it's not part of this plan. It's for the property right to the north of us. Is there a time frame? Would that be up and done before the large user starts building? Just curious about that.
Mike Faber, Capstone Quadrangle again. The berm, obviously along the south edge, which we had promised to that neighborhood 8 to 10 years ago when we rezoned all the land to the south, is absolutely part of our plan. We have submitted a grading plan to the city for that property. It's separate from the application you have before you for the large user parcel. But we have taken comments from the city and are revising that plan. And it's our intention to build all of the grading on that site as soon as the large user moves forward with their site. So it'll be done before we build any buildings on that land to the south. And I would expect that we would be complete, if the large user starts this fall, we'll be complete with our grading yet this fall as well. Some of the landscaping will obviously have to be put in place on that berm prior to, in order to stabilize it, but some of the landscaping elements may wait until the spring, depending on how the end of the season goes. But that's our timing expectation.
Thank you.
Certainly.
So off my notes, I think we covered everything, but if I missed something, omitted a question, let me know. If not, commissioners, I'll give you question comment time.
I just have a question. Number of truck traffic are we having on a daily basis? Is it 200, 300, 50?
From a trucking standpoint, on an hourly basis, during the peak morning and peak afternoon hours, during the non-peak season, it's about 10 trucks in that peak hour. But on a daily basis, it's about 210 trucks. When I say 210 trucks, it's really 105 entering, 105 exiting. One truck makes 2 trips in and out. Does that answer your question?
Can you repeat that again?
Sure. On a daily basis, it's 210 truck trips. What that means is 105 trucks. 105 trips entering, 105 trucks exiting.
This is per day?
On a daily basis, correct.
Thank you.
Is that it, Fred? Or you got more?
That's it.
For now?
You answered most of my questions already.
Okay. Yeah, I tried to take it as orderly as we could because there's a lot of questions. Chauncey, you got something?
Yes, okay. I have questions about the actual building. So it's a 4-story building. Can you provide more information on all the different levels, what's happening there, or actually the products that will be at the facility?
Greg Skovich, 9525 West Bryn Mawr, Rosemont, Illinois. Carrie, I assume you're looking for the elevations. Perfect. So this is a warehouse and distribution facility. The first floor will be processing and packaging. Second, third, and fourth floors will be. You're not? Okay. First floor will be processing, packaging. Second, third, and fourth floors will be storage of warehouse goods. And then the first floor, as Carrie had suggested earlier, also includes an office component of about 35,000 square feet.
And custom or no? Vendor, for lack of a better term.
The large user, right now, we're operating under confidentiality, and we cannot disclose that at this time.
So can you help me understand how the business would be run with all the storage on the second and fourth floor to the first floor?
Unfortunately, I can't speak to that because in this capacity, I'm operating as the developer. I'm building the building, and what the operator does within those four walls is at his discretion, and I just don't know how that operation works.
So I guess I just need more details on the inside of the building, how it flows. I don't have enough information.
That's really up to the user. If they want to have a very efficient conveyor system or whatever they use, that's up to them. If they want to do it all manual by hand, that's a management decision. Right now, we're on the plans. We're just on the building, the look of it, the materials. The management aspect of it, that's up to them. How many employees they want to do, things of that nature.
Okay. Okay.
I can speak to, some of the articulation. It is 4 floors, a first floor, second, third, and fourth elevated platforms, for lack of a better term, and they are wall-to-wall-to-wall floors, platforms, and you can see in the exhibit that Ms. Papelbon has pulled up, there is articulation outside of the face of the building, and in that articulation, there is material handling equipment moving product from first floor all the way up to fourth floor, back down, as well as people handling equipment, for lack of a better term, elevators and egress stairs. So that I can speak to that from an architectural and an engineering standpoint. As a landlord, we would be providing those elements to the user.
And how many employees again?
Right now, they're projecting 2 shifts in excess of 1,000 people during peak season.
During peak season.
Correct.
And so we have, Carrie, we said 1,700 plus parks. So that is sufficient based on what they had. They had 1,800 maybe? So
They had over 1,800 employee parking stalls provided in the plans. And since this is 2 shifts, yes, they have sufficient parking.
Okay, and then just more information about the building itself. It looks pretty plain. Can you kind of go through the details of the building? I don't see a lot of windows.
Sure.
It look a little different.
Staff
More welcoming.
Staff raised a similar comment, and this iteration is in response to that comment. The book is certainly not closed on what staff has asked us to look at, but it is precast concrete. There is material handling equipment sensitive to natural illumination, which challenges the introduction of windows on the elevated platforms. So it is best that we try to avoid introducing natural illumination through windows. And what we're trying to do is figure out how we can accomplish that through other opportunities via paint or additional reveals in the precast. And we are trying to enhance the aesthetic of the building.
So when you say enhance it, what does that look like?
Well, again, this from what you were previously looking at to what is in front of you today, that is an example of one of the enhancements that we're considering.
So what has changed? My apologies that I didn't get at it.
Well, you can see the windows, the faux windows that we've introduced on the north elevation, which is fronting Ryan Road, and wrapping around to the west, which is at the corner of 13th and Ryan.
Did you say faux windows? I did. Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Chris? Greg?
Just kind of going off what was just talked about. I'm not an engineer, architect, anything like that. I just noticed that you said there was a first floor and then 3 elevated platforms. Are these not typical building floors? I just never heard it referred to as elevated platforms before.
Well, the reason I refer to them as platforms is they are technically removable. So if at a later date the user's operation changed to where they didn't need that elevated floor area, we have designed the building such that those floors could be removed at a later date. Hence the reason I'm referring to them as platforms.
Kind of going back to the TIA real quick.
Yes, sir.
And maybe you said this, I just didn't catch it. When you first begin the process, is it the county and the state that recommended the 3 entrances on 13th, or was that kind of offered to them like, this is what we're thinking, do the TIA based on this?
It was in from a service perspective to bring associates and product in and out of the facility. That was where we asked the DOT to start their analysis.
With the 4-lane entrance that you're trying to funnel, I'm guessing employees, since the trucks will come in that entrance, onto Ryan Road, the need for the 2 on 13th, is that safety? Is there?
It is certainly helping with circulation or in and around the building for, in the event of an emergency, but it is also there to provide alternate means for associates to leave.
That southernmost ingress egress is one way, right? You're promoting a one-way flow of the semi-traffic, or is there 2?
The trucks will be entering and exiting through a controlled access point in the form of a guard shack.
And then the entrance that will be used by the trucks, as far as the residents actually on 13th Street, are they further south than that, correct? So as if somebody would be turning right, that wouldn't be going right in front of a home.
There are a handful of homes across on the
Directly
west side
across
of
from this?
13th Street. Just scattered throughout from Colders on.
Just a comment on the north view where we have the faux windows. I think that's important to break up that, whether they're accessible or not. But how do we handle the glazing requirements then?
Technically, glazing requirements minimum are for Drexeltown Square. We do require, as part of the regular code, articulation of the building and for the facade to be broken up if it's if it's more than 100 linear feet. That can be through recesses and projections, that can be through the use of windows, that can be through the introduction of other architectural features, it could be through changing color or changing materials. So as long as we have some kind of facade breakup, that's allowed per code. There's no necessary window requirement unless you're in Drexeltown Square.
Carrie, if you can just bring up the overall site exhibit that was provided. Just to address a little bit of the landscaping question that you had. The building itself is roughly 1,000 feet back from 13th Street. So there's roughly, I don't know if it's 400 feet of natural area, grass, detention ponds, landscaping that's going to be between 13th Street and the start of the parking lot. The parking lot is also going to be roughly 4 feet lower than what 13th Street. So your eye view should be over that parking lot, so you're not seeing the sea of concrete along 13th Street as you drive up and down the road. Okay? And we're trying to get a lot of landscaping out along 13th Street to try and shield that as much as we can. Also in the parking lot itself, doing a lot of trees in the parking lot islands and seeing what we can do to try and mask that parking lot as much as possible.
Okay, Brian?
Yep.
Thanks for that information. I didn't know that. Christine, anything? Nothing?
Mayor, I have another question.
Fred?
Yeah, is this a 7-day operation?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Chris, you had one more thing?
I just had to mention, so on the berm on the south side, that we had discussed and we brought up at the meeting for the large user to make sure that that could be in place for all of the residents on the south end. So just so you know that as he mentioned earlier, that is something that they'll work on just as soon as they can. Now, also just remind yourself that this is really the discussion right now is not the overall business park. This is just the one user, the whole business. That's why we're talking in slices here a little bit. And then just with the traffic, I do, again, I'm still, as I've mentioned along, I'm having a difficult time, a struggle with the traffic right now.
One
Chauncey,
additional
go ahead.
comment. So still a challenge with the traffic, with the study, what is it called? TIA, traffic impact analysis. If it tells us that there needs to be an entrance and exit off of Ryan Road, how do we address that? Do we just add another line item here just in case?
There already is a planned public road from Ryan into the business park itself, terminating in a cul-de-sac on the north side of this property. The width that I heard was a 4-lane divided road. Is that correct, Brian?
Yes.
So if the TIA mentions other portions that need to be constructed, those are the things that we're talking about would need to go in for the overall development. So we already have the Ryan Road access.
However, no trucks can use it. Is that what we're saying?
No. Ryan Road is, you can see the truck court is connected to the cul-de-sac, and in cases of emergency or instances where we cannot access 13th Street, we have that access point onto the cul-de-sac for trucks to exit the facility in those instances.
To exit and enter the
Correct.
facility? So, okay, I guess I'm unclear. So help me understand this private road. Is it just for emergencies only? Is that what you're saying? But it is available if...
Which road are you referring to? There's a
The one off of Ryan Road.
the
Because
one
to
off
my-
of Ryan Road is a proposed public road. That's going to be city constructed
Oh, I
public
heard, I
road.
heard private. So it's public?
It's a public road
Okay.
from Ryan Road.
Okay.
Off of 13th Street for the truck traffic. That's a private access drive. That's 2 lanes.
Okay, I'm even more confused than before. Help me understand the flow of traffic with the trucks.
If you look at the plan,
Yes,
the southernmost access on 13th Street is for truck traffic. The northern public street off of Ryan Road, you'll see terminates at a cul-de-sac on the north portion of this property. That's the public road. That's the access to Ryan.
once again, we're saying that trucks can access both roads. Because I didn't hear that earlier, my apologies.
That is
I
correct.
just heard only 13th Street, that trucks can come in and out on 13th Street. Is that not?
No, that is correct. Trucks can, well, I I think I'm correcting two different things, but from a program standpoint, the primary entrance and exit point into the active truck yard is via 13th Street. However, in unique circumstances or emergencies, we have the access point out the north end of the building to the cul-de-sac.
Okay. So going back to my original question, so if this TIA says you need 2 entrances off of Ryan Road, is that covered in items 1 through 12?
I guess that would be highly unlikely to have for the state to recommend 2 access points off of Ryan Road, but certainly
But we don't know. I just want to make sure we have that as an option since it's not listed. Because what I heard, the TIA can tell us anything.
Yeah.
It may require, I don't know, 4 access points on 13th Street.
Sure.
But we
And-
want to make sure that we're able to modify what's here based on the TIA. And to your point, maybe nothing changes.
Sure.
But if it does, I just want to make sure we're covered.
whatever capacity these 2 roadways need per the TIA, that's what the developer will have to build. And I know that there's a level of discomfort in not having the TIA done, but if we had the TIA done, we would be devolving into really the discussion would devolve into, do we really need a turn lane there? Do we really need a light there? It's really a false sense of security to say that we need the TIA, because if we had the TIA, that's exactly what we would have to build. If we don't have the TIA, that's exactly what we have to build. So, the capacity per the authorities of these roadways, who again don't have to spend any money, so they're going to tell us probably to overbuild this. We will defer to them and we will build those improvements as per the TIA. You can debate whether the main truck access should be off of Ryan Road or off of 13th Street. That's valid, but I don't think you want this to rest on we have or don't have a TIA. And again, as I introduced earlier, I don't think that if the predominant truck maneuverability or truck access were off of Ryan Road, that the residents would like the design of the layout of the development as it would have to be to do that. Clearly, we wouldn't put docks facing Ryan Road. All of those docks that you see nestled into the railroad tracks would be facing the neighborhood to the south, which, as a reminder, as one graphic depicted, is 1,100 feet away from this property line. So,
maybe I could address some of your comments regarding the TIA process as far as access points and what if another access point is needed and so on and so forth. Keep in mind the TIA is done in 2 phases. The first phase submittal has been completed. What's in that first phase? First phase concludes all our traffic count data, how much traffic we expect to be generated, truck traffic to be generated by the facility, where we expect that traffic to come to and from, other which direction it's going to go, and where that traffic is going to be assigned to each driveway. DOT and the county approved that already, so they're not going to require another access point to be added or changed. The access points you see in front of you are what is going to be moving forward with. The question now is really how many lanes and where should traffic signals go? What improvements are needed at 13th and Ryan Road? What about the interchange? Those types of things. That's what we're in the process of doing right now. But as far as where those access points and how many access points are needed, that's been signed off by the county and the DOT already. Hopefully that helps.
Yes, that helps tremendously.
And just keep in mind the purpose of the TIA is really not to determine will this work or not. The purpose of the TIA is really to determine what improvements are needed to allow the intersection, the study area, to operate within DOT acceptable levels. And what does that mean? DOT acceptable levels really is their design standards that we have to follow and adhere to. And the county has also adopted those design standards as well. In other words, we have to ensure through our analysis that everything meets the requirements up to the year 2039. So it's not just open year, it's ultimate build-out conditions, and not just of this park, but also surrounding developments as well as they build out.
Okay, so let me ask this question. Based on the daily peak hours of 1,000 trucks per day, So this information has been given or was part of the traffic analysis, which it was determined you only need these 3 access points. Is that correct? Am I understanding you correctly?
Yeah, just if I could clarify one thing, as far as the truck volumes, we're looking at about 200 trucks per day, truck trips per day. I think you're referencing employees when you said 1,000.
Yes,
So,
200 per day, my
right,
apologies.
okay, so,
Yes.
yes, DOT has reviewed that, and they've accepted and signed off on that traffic generation for both the opening year as well as the ultimate build-out condition.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I'm clear. So there is, at this time, not a possibility of trucks using this Ryan Road access, except in cases of an emergency. Because I know this was several of the questions from the residents of the flow of traffic. So I want to make sure we're clear, is that all traffic will come off of 13th Street, except in case of an emergency, because this analysis has already been done stating that. Is that correct?
Truck traffic for this facility, in and out of the facility, will be utilizing the southern driveway off 13th Street, correct? In instances where there's an emergency situation, trucks will be allowed to also use the access off Ryan Road, but that would be a case-by-case or as-needed basis.
Thank you for that clarification, because that is not what I heard earlier.
And for one of your earlier questions, conditions 5 and 12 do not prohibit changes to the plan based on what the requirements of the TIA would present.
Thank you. You said 5 and 12?
Okay, Brian, last one.
I was just trying to help Commissioner Chandler out a little bit. You can think of the trailer parking, it's a gated parking lot. So the flow of this is going to be out and in through that guard shack. So there is a gate across that north road that will be closed. Okay?
Wait, help me.
Around the trailer parking, the backside of the
Okay.
building. It's
Okay.
kind of hard to see on the plans, but that is all gated and secured parking for all the trailers. Okay?
So does that mean there won't be a backup of trucks on 13th Street? Because this is where they'll park? Am I understanding that correctly?
This is just the trailer parking and access for the loading docks.
Okay.
It is all gated and secured.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Guess we hit it all. Are we, last one, sir.
Brian Schrader, 910 West Finch Court. It was brought up that for safety reasons that the trucks would have to do a counterclockwise rotation. If they're doing a whole circle in that parking lot, we're not doing anything differently. I mean, if they can do the same thing coming off of Ryan Road, there should be no reason why they have to come on off 13th and do it the counterclockwise rotation for that pack of it. If anything, with all today's technology, there should be no reason why they can't come in off of 13th and exit through Ryan Road through a cambered gate that can be operated by the controller at the gate, that guard shack.
I'll let the applicants, anything on that?
The sensitivity to counterclockwise movements is as it relates to backing into a trailer stall with a trailer behind you. That's the operational sensitivity and just a design standard in industrial warehouse developments. If you can design for counterclockwise movements, that's what you're trying to do so that you can protect everyone in that critical reverse function when you're backing into a dock position. But yes, they will be exiting in a clockwise direction back through the guard shack. But at that point, they won't be backing into a position. They'll be pulling a trailer out, and the movement is much safer and more predictable by the operator.
Yeah.
Another question. I'm, once again, unclear if the applicant addressed the residents' concern about traffic.
Well,
Did we touch on the traffic?
basically, he was wondering why the trucks aren't going to exit on Ryan Road.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're gonna go out on the primary road on 13th with the guard shack, accounting for what's going in and out of there, one way or the other. That's control point rather than having 2 guard posts or whatever. again, that's a management issue. As far as the backing up of a truck, if you're telling me it's a safety issue, I have to take your word for it. I've never driven a semi in my life, more or less could back one up. But again, that was really his concern, if they could enter on 13th and go out on Ryan. And the answer is, once they load or unload or whatever they do, then they're going to go back out, and they're going to exit, and they're going to go north.
Another question, because I know that came up several times too. So when you say these trucks only go north, what does that mean exactly? Is there a sign saying turn right only?
That's me saying that.
Oh,
okay. And I would push very hard to have it so basically the concrete pushes them right, that they can't go left, to protect the neighbors to the south.
So is the applicant open to that, or you had some other options to make sure the flow of traffic goes to the right?
The beauty of this site is the proximity to I-94 and Ryan Road interchange. I cannot predict where these drivers are going to go, but the drivers are paid by the mile, and they want to get to the highest level of service, which is a highway, as quickly as possible. And the quickest way to do that is to go north on 13th to Ryan Road to I-94.
Okay, last two. Come on up.
Just to add to that,
Last, ma'am, you can come too. Come on up. No. I don't want to stifle it, but we're starting to talk about the same things over and over again. So if it isn't a repeat, please come up.
Michelle Gibbs, 1504 West Daniel Lane. I understand about the traffic and the trucks coming and going, but what about the 1,000 employees? Could they also be encouraged to go north exclusively? That's a whole lot of traffic for 13th Street.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Mike? Name
Mike
again.
Dudzik again, yeah. 2 weeks ago, we went to a presentation, and at that time it was discussed there was going to be 350 trucks. And I asked the question, they said, I did, and they said, yeah, you did your homework. In excess of 300. Today I'm hearing 200. What is it? Okay. Is it 350? Is it 200?
I can answer that.
Okay.
During the non-peak season, it's 210 trips per day for trucks. During the peak season, for those 3 or 4 weeks, it's 360 trucks per day. That's the difference.
That's a big.
Now, again, when I say 360 trucks, it's truck trips. So divide that in half, that's the number of trucks. That's, again, just during that peak season, those couple weeks.
Ma'am.
Bilancia, 1050 West Dover Drive. Nobody asked about lights on the parking lot.
Okay.
So how much we're going to be affected by those lights?
Well, again, the lights
on trucks at night?
They're going to, again, we're going to try to, the lights are going to be done by berm, on the property. As far as the lights from the building, we have lighting requirements for stray lighting with cutoffs and what have you. Most likely these are going to be LEDs that just blast down to the road. So, in the distance, yes, you're going to see a light, but it shouldn't be straying into your windows in any way, shape, or form. So, go ahead.
I have another question.
You got a lot of questions.
Okay,
That's
Carrie.
good, though. You're doing your job. Keep going.
So, Carrie, I know the berms are not included today. However, does item 7 cover us to make sure that the berms are sufficient for the resident?
One of the berms is not actually on this property, so we can take that off the table right away. As far as the rest of it, we have grading plans that are required, and we require landscaping plans. Between those two, we would be covered.
Thank you.
Great. Yep, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, if the commission is going to consider a petition tonight, I would request that condition 3, relative to FEMA approvals, remove approval of floodplain and limit it to just floodway.
Can you repeat that?
Condition number 3, as it relates to FEMA approvals, I would like to remove reference to approval of floodplain and limit it to just floodway.
Barry?
Would you be open to getting a Clomar? It's an expedited process.
Invite my engineer to the table.
Excuse me, Adam Arts, Pinnacle Engineering Group, 15850 West Blue Mountain Road. The reason of the request for the comment change was per our meetings early on where the city has the approval authority on the flood fringe. The floodway is FEMA's ultimate jurisdiction. So it's just a clarification. The CLOMAR process itself is a conditional letter, which is the exact same process as a LOMR. It's just before you start the construction. So it would be actually vice versa. If you wanted to go to FEMA, it would be the LOMR process following the construction, not the CLOMR before construction. And those floodplain computations have been submitted to engineering, and we've gotten comments, and we've addressed something to actually take it to one step beyond and not count some volume that could be counted to appease a request by engineering to make it one step more conservative.
Okay, Carrie.
All right.
Okay with 3?
Yep.
Okay, just want to make sure we've come this far. I appreciate everybody's patience in this, by the way, both residents and staff. It takes a lot of time to shuffle through this stuff, and I appreciate you guys coming out here and inputting, because this is really what it's all about. But appreciate the staff's hard work too, and Hillwood just the same. So I know it's been kind of long, but hang in there. We're getting there. Okay, we're good on 3 then. Anything else down the way? Concerns of staff for the motion? And if we're comfortable, motion, please.
Johnson moves that the Plan Commission approves the site and building plans submitted by Donald Schoenheider Hillwood Enterprises LP for the property at 9700 South 13th Street with the following conditions. 1, that all relevant code requirements are in effect. 2, that all plans shall be revised to comply with required setbacks per the PUD conditions and restrictions in the municipal code. 3, that copies of all FEMA approvals for the modifications to the floodway shall be provided to the city prior to the submission of building permit applications. 4, that copies of any wetland fill approvals and/or permits from the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources shall be provided to the city prior to the submission of building permit applications. 5, that copies of all access approvals and agreements shall be provided to the city prior to submission of building permit applications. 6, that all public trail easements on the east side of the property are incorporated into all plans. 7, that the landscape plan is revised to incorporate required vegetation and submitted for review and approval by the Director of Community Development prior to the issuance of building permit applications. 8, that the plans are revised to include details for all trash enclosures, retaining walls, and the guard shack. 9, that the plans are revised to include locations for all mechanicals, transformers, and utilities. 10, that all mechanical equipment, transformers, and utility boxes, ground, building, and rooftop are screened from view. 11, that all plans are revised to include details of any trash receptacles and the retaining wall. 12, that all revised plans, site, building, landscape, etc., are submitted in digital format for review and approval by the Department of Community Development prior to the submission of building permit applications.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call, please.
Hannah, no.
Johnston, aye.
Grillo, aye.
Lorick, aye.
Kavich, aye.
Guzekowski, no.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, no.
Four, 3. It goes. Okay. Just had to count. 5, 3. I can't even count today. So, okay. I want to thank everybody for their patience again. Again, going forward, we're going to have more to do on this property, so please stay active, residents. Again, it's important to let us know what your concerns are and what you're thinking about. Obviously, you've been in contact with your alderman. Keep it up. And I appreciate your patience coming out tonight, because I know everybody has a lot of other things to do tonight, too. And Hillwood, thank you very much. Appreciate it. And staff, nice job. Thank you very much, because I know it was long. Pete had to sit through all this again.
Got one more.
We're going to take about a 20-minute break now. Thank you, everybody. Next up, item 5E. It is a temporary use permit for the upcoming Harley anniversary. So, and they want to sell some shirts at 1299 West College. So, Pete, take it away.
As you can see, they left me alone to pile the ship here. They all realize how dismayed you guys were not hearing from me presenting last meeting, so I am here to finish out this meeting. As the mayor indicated, this is a temporary use permit requesting the ability to use the parking lot at 1299 West College Avenue for the sale of Harley-Davidson apparel. The person who will be operating this outdoor retail is the owner of the restaurant and the property. He did indicate, include in your report, is a location map showing where they're going to be putting it, or not. Apparently my computer called it quits. It said it was done. But in your report, you can see there's an aerial map showing where the tent will be. The tent will be 20 by 40. And as I said earlier, it will be for the sale of Harley-Davidson apparel and souvenirs. The operations will be from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. The duration of this temporary use permit will be from August 29th through September 3rd of this year. And the applicant has indicated that the loss of 12 parking spaces would not negatively impact his operations as a restaurant. As always, when we talk about temporary use permits, staff has always consistently expressed caution when using parking lots for retail use. This is a little bit different than maybe the Tree Ripe one. That was the company that came in from out of state, set up shop, and then left. This is a business who actually has a brick and mortar business. He's looking for 5 days to operate sales. He did verbally indicate to me that this is something that he only does on the anniversaries of Harley-Davidson, and I believe it's not like an every year thing, it's every 5 years, I believe. So this is not something that you'll see every year for the next, how many years you're still on this commission. With that said, if the Plan Commission believes that this temporary use permit is appropriate, staff did draft a motion stating that the Plan Commission approve a temporary use permit for the temporary sales of Harley-Davidson apparel in the parking lot located at 1299 West College Avenue with the following conditions, 1 through 3. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Pete. Questions, comments from the commission? Nothing from Christine. Brian, you're looking to buy a shirt.
Well, I'll probably be down there, but I'm not sure this is what we want on the corner of College and 13th Street there.
You know, I know it's kind of different for us. It is an anniversary, so, and it's only a 3-day event, so 4-day event, and it only comes once every few years. So, I don't know. I'm okay with it for the town. Dawn?
Oh, good.
Greg? How about you, Chris? All right. Fred?
3 days. 3 days.
You know what? We do things temporary like lions and peaches and things like that. I'm just saying, I'm in favor of this, but you guys are gonna probably make the motion. Jossie? You probably need some Harley apparel too, so.
She's gonna get a shirt.
I'm gonna go get a shirt.
All right. Motion, please.
The planning commission approve a temporary use permit for the temporary sale of Harley-Davidson apparel in the parking lot located at 1299 West College Avenue with the following conditions. 1, sales are limited to the area within the tent area identified on the site plan. 2, hours of operations will be from 11 a.m. till 10 p.m. 3, the permit is valid August 29th, 2018 through September 3rd, 2018.
Oh, wait, before there's a second, quick question. Do we need to say anything about signage? I know for other temporary places, we have that in here also.
The applicant did not indicate any sort of signage that was being proposed at this time. The applicant is here. If you'd like to step up to the podium and address that concern.
Name and address, please.
Dennis Giannopoulos. I live at 1243 Carriachin Road, Hubertus, Wisconsin. I'm the owner and operator of the Brandon Stair. and I do the 10th every 5 years in my parking lot. I did it last time
Okay.
also, 5 years ago.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, well,
You know what? I don't remember a lot of stuff. That's okay.
Do you have any signage?
there's no signage. It's just a white tent, simple. The shirts speak for themselves. This is one of the shirts. This is one of the shirts. It's really nothing. It's, one person stays in there and, that's about 5 or 10 at the most in there actually shopping for a shirt. It's really low key.
Where do they go? Just out of curiosity.
Pardon me?
A shirt costs $20 during Harley Week,
No,
is it?
no, these are like $5. They're not expensive.
Bulking deal.
3 for 15,
Oh,
but they can go up to 20.
Brian, you need
things.
2 shirts.
We'd be happy to bring you over a shirt.
Anyways, do we have
We need a second.
the motion?
Hannah
Do we
seconds.
got a second?
We need a second.
Anna seconds.
All right, roll call.
Hannah, I.
Johnston, no.
Grillo, aye.
Lorick, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, I.
Great. Thank you for your patience. Enjoy. Hope it is a safe ride weekend.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Before we go, just very quickly, reminder, our farmer's market continues on this Saturday. Produce is starting to come in. They had apples last week. So please, if you haven't gotten out there, discover and explore that farmer's market at Town Square. Also, September 8th, we have a shred day at West Middle School this year. Popular event, bring in your confidential paperwork, get shredded on site, free of cost. Take advantage of that. So, am I missing anything else?
Time from what to what?
The shred day is from 9 a.m. to noon. And then, of course, our world famous Lions Fest kicks off this Friday and runs through Labor Day. Please get down there, support a good cause. Lions do a good job for everybody down there. And more importantly, everybody enjoy their Labor Day weekend. We all work out there. We're all part of labor, so enjoy the fruits of what you got there. With that, adjournment.
Grillo moves to adjourn at 8:33.
Seifert seconds.
Roll call.
Hannah, I.
Johnston, I.
Grillo, aye.
Lorick, aye.
Gavich, aye.
Guzekowski, aye.
Seifert, aye.
Chandler, I.
Great. Thank you all.